Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Janetta, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through Unity of Fredericksburg, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fare. And now here's Reverend Fare. Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Janetta, and welcome, everyone who is with me right now in the Zoom room, and all of you out there who are watching on YouTube, whether you're watching now or later, or whether you pick it up even after that on social media. We appreciate you showing up and being a part of the energy that is Unity of Fredericksburg. Our broadcast date today is Sunday, November 30th. Welcome to the holiday season, friends. Today is the first Sunday of Advent. So I have some information from the Spiritual Passages website about Advent. It's the season in the Christian tradition that marks the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, and the name comes from the Latin adventus, meaning arrival or coming. And of course, Advent is associated both with the birth of Jesus and, in a more universal sense, the anticipation of renewed divine presence in the world. So, in practice, Advent invites a slower rhythm in a fast season, right? Lighting candles on the Advent wreath, reading daily reflections or scripture, and cultivating inner stillness. The heart of Advent is simple: to wait with purpose, to watch with hope, to make room for light that's always on its way. So that was from Spiritual Passages. And of course, Unity founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, they honored the process of Advent in Unity practices. And we look forward to reflecting on the meaning and the rhythm of this sacred time of year beginning today. So on Sunday mornings in Advent, when I'm with you, we will be looking at the classic nativity story in the Bible, looking for ways that this lovely old story shines with inspiration for us right here and now in our modern lives. So this nativity story shows up in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. Now, it's always important when we start talking about the Bible and Unity that we point out that Unity does not take the Bible literally. So we're not out to explain how these events in this story actually could happen in the material world. What we're doing is looking to draw meaning for ourselves from the rich and nuanced story, okay? And our focus for today is the character of Mary. To get us started with that, I have another little something from Spiritual Passages, a little short little story. So, a Sunday school teacher asked her class, what was Jesus's mother's name? One child answered, Mary. And then the teacher said, who knows what Jesus's father's name was? And another child, raised their hand and said, Verge. And confused, the teacher asked, where did you get that? And the child said, well, they're always talking about Verge and Mary. So there you go. Get us started in a solid but serious way. So um, we're going to be focusing on Mary today. So let's kind of start by hearing some of that old story. And in particular, we're looking at the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, beginning with verse 26. And just so you know, when Unity leaders, when we access the Bible, in general, we use the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version. And I think it even shows up in the online platform I use as updated. So there are lots of different translations. That's the one we use in Unity. So here we go. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. So take a little pause. Metaphysically, angels are meant to represent just messages from spirit. And I can think, we've all had those moments where it's like there's a spark of inspiration, and you feel like, well, that didn't come from my human brain, did it? So that's sort of, metaphysically, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about an angel. Now, from the scripture you hear, we don't actually know very much about Mary. We can, based on the culture of the time, given that she's betrothed, so she's engaged to be married, this character was likely a young woman in her late teenage years. So, continuing with the scripture. And he came to her, Gabriel came to her and said, greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you. But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. So we're going to follow up more on that later, this perplexed and pondered. I would be too, right? If you had an apparition show up and greet you in that way, like, what is this about? Moving on, the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. And Gabriel goes on with some yada, 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 yada about Jesus. And Mary's response is, at this point, she has questions. So Mary said to the angel, how can this be, since I am a virgin? Now, Gabriel, we're going to come back and talk about all this. So Gabriel replies with a couple of things like, how can this be? Well, he says, well, for you, the Holy Spirit came upon you, and he talks some of that. And then he also says, and also your cousin Elizabeth, who's way past the age of having children, she's conceived as well. And he kind of throws in an anchor on his pitch is nothing is impossible with God. And that's the ringer for Mary. Then Mary said, here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word. So, and then, by the way, Mary goes to visit Elizabeth. So let's just kind of look at all of this from a bigger perspective, right? Across timelines and that sort of thing. So Mary's being presented with a big change coming in her life. So has that ever happened to you? So we're not talking about with this story a sudden change, but a change that it's like, oh, here's something coming. I see it down the road. So, think about a time in your life. You might be in the middle of something. You might be in the middle of a big change. But it could be something that's happened in the past. So could be a change in your health, career, relationships, family, financial changes. So we're going to talk through the example of Mary and just have that situation in your mind so you can see what insight this story has for you with whatever thing from your life has come to mind for you. Okay? So let's go back and look. Mary's first response is to kind of step back and what is described as perplexity and pondering, kind of like, what is that? That's different than what we're doing right now. Now, what's important about this, one of the things that's important about this is this pondering. Now, perplexity, that's a reflection of, well, this is how we're doing things now. Clearly, things are going to change. Pondering, a word that we would probably use more commonly would be wondering. That's an activity that opens up space for curiosity, right? For opportunity. It really is a spiritual response on Mary's part, an intuitive response to go, what is this about? So, this is a great example of leaning into the first step of responding to something's coming, being a step of spirit led, right? Not making a list, calling a friend, doing some research, rushing around, but opening up to intuition and kind of seeing, oh, things are going to change. Let's be in a space of curiosity, not a space of reactivity, but responsiveness. So that's the first thing that we see now from Mary. And the second thing, after she hears some more information about what's coming, is then she has questions. A lot of us would, right? With whatever it is that you're thinking about, the example in your life, you want to allow your brain some space to have questions, right? And this is a very kind of human nature response. She's going, how is this possible? That's not how things work. Now, a lot of times, whatever the new situation that's coming is going to fall outside the, normal thing that we are used to. And it's important to allow our human brain some time to adapt to that, to ask questions. So we want to stress leaning into spirit, but we want to allow our brains time to ask those questions. And we want to encourage not so much that we are pressing for answers, but that we're just allowing those questions to come forth. Allowing, okay, well, I'm going to need to understand this and how's that going to work and whatever. So, this is a time to allow those questions to come forth. And the reason we don't want to push forward with, let's get an answer, make a plan, figure things out, is that we want to allow those questions to kind of breathe. And we want to allow ourselves time to listen as answers come forward from spirit, right? Because that comes forward in a different way than answers that our brain wants, right? So we've got the pondering. We've got the asking of questions. The next thing, as Mary listens to all of Gabriel's replies, when she says, well, how is this possible? He's got an answer for her. He's got another example. This has also happened with Elizabeth. And then he kind of anchors things with nothing is impossible with God. And that is the key for Mary, because her reference point is a spiritual reference point. And that's all that it takes for her to just say, let it be. So she shows us an example of acceptance, peacefulness, faith. And again, she's not moving into action, right? It doesn't say anything about Mary went and cooked some food or Mary packed up or Mary, all of those things. It's restful and peaceful contemplation. So, from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which is a wonderful resource that we use in Unity, when we look up Mary, the mother of Jesus, it describes her as she represents the spirit that magnifies the divine and through its devotions prepares itself for a higher life. So we know when big change comes that very often what this is leading us to the next level of what we are here to experience and express through spirit. So Mary gives us that example of spirit that magnifies the divine, is devoted, and is in that activity of preparing for the next layer of spirit expressing. So there's a sense of faith. God is present and all will be well. There's no need to rush around and manage the situation, which is what our brains like to do. No need for making lists and organizing. The one thing that Mary does do, the next thing she does, is she goes to visit Elizabeth. And I think this is a wise thing for her to do, like trust but verify, right? So it goes to Elizabeth, say, this happened to me. Did this happen with you? So she's making community, right? So she's connecting with Elizabeth, she's creating community and seeing, kind of like, is this just me? Did I, like, was this a nightmare or what, but, and when she finds connection with Elizabeth, then she can kind of see, this that's coming is part of a larger connection of things. And of course, we know that anything that big that's happening in our life, it's not just happening with us, right? It's happening with everyone connected with us. And so as we look at Mary and how she responds, these are important reflections when news of big change shows up in our lives. So do you naturally move into reaction and action, or do you shift into spirit and open to curiosity? Do you just automatically allow your brain to take over and manage things? Or are you able to trust and let it be and see how things play out? So, for those of us of a certain age, popular culture gives us some messages about this. And one fine example is the song Let It Be, written by Paul McCartney and performed by the Beatles. And according to Paul McCartney, the song was written at a time when the Beatles were experiencing, as it references in the song, a time of trouble. And so they were having some problems, relationship issues with the band. And in a dream, his mother, whose name was Mary, came to him and appeared to him, and what he's quoted as saying that that he heard from his mother was, it will be all right, just let it be. And he wrote the song, and I'm sure all of us have probably heard the song, and for many of us it provided that sense of comfort, that sense of inspiration. So as we move into that season of Advent, we all have an opportunity to bring about an expression, a new expression of divine light. If we kind of work with this rhythm of the calendar year, then we've been about our business of 2025, doing many things happening. We just kind of sealed that whole process last week with gratitude. And now we're in that space where we can contemplate new expressions. What new expression of divine light do you have to bring forth? That's represented in this nativity story by the birth of the Christ light. So, with whatever new that you might have stirring up, are you willing to accept? Are you willing to ponder? Are you willing to contemplate? Are you willing to trust and let it be? There's a more recent expression of the same kind of advice in popular culture. And I found it recently in a book that I just recently ordered. I haven't read it all yet, but I've got a couple of kernels from it today. And it is a book. Here's the book here. It's called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. So it's a bestseller, so you may have heard about it. What it does is this theory reveals how much we allow ourselves to be driven by our perceptions of other people, what other people are thinking, what other people are doing. So, this book asks us, do you find yourself asking when it comes to what decision you're going to make, whether it's what am I going to wear, where am I going to go, whatever it is, do you find yourself asking, what will people think? I know in my household growing up, I had a parent that would comment on things. It was kind of offered as a joke, and yet was not a joke. Of people don't like people that do that, and so you knew you had stepped out of line when you got the comment. People don't like people that do that. So, uh, is that something? Do you have that kind of voice in your life? Like, what will people think? Now, this let them approach gives you permission to focus on your own needs. Can you imagine how it would have been if that was Mary's first response? Like, well, what are people going to think? I mean, she was not in a, good situation if she's, with child, not married yet. That would not have gone well if that was her reaction, right? Um, but because she stayed anchored in spirit, and she believed that nothing is impossible with God, then she was able to kind of go forth in acceptance. So, how would whatever situation that you have in your mind or that you're tossing around as we go through this, how would your situation shift if you adopted that mindset that Mary had, that rather than what would other people think about what I'm going to do, say, whatever, how about nothing is impossible with spirit? How would that shift the whole dynamic for you? Another angle that Mel Robbins shows us with the let them theory explores what we do when someone else behaves in a way that we don't like. Huh? Whatever it is that might be. If you can think of a situation where it's like you really don't like how that person talks, thinks, acts, believes, their politics, whatever, the let them theory proposes that the answer is not to fight or fix or control, even if that's just what's going on in your consciousness, my friends. Some of us might be engaged in activities where we want to manage a group of people, whether it's the family around the Thanksgiving table or a work situation or whatever. What Mel Robbins is suggesting is that you just let them. Just let people be who they are. And even if this is just an inner shift from you to stop the monologue of commenting on how other people are being and thinking about it would be better if they would just stop. Just let them. And this mindset shifts. It reduces stress, strengthens relationships, and helps you focus on what you can actually control, which is your own actions, your own boundaries, your own growth. So here is Mel Robbins kind of providing same kind of wisdom that we get from the nativity story. Let it be. Just let them. Excuse me. One moment. My goodness. Of course, young Mary does not allow other people to complicate her circumstances. She's not trying to fight or fix or control. She stays grounded in spirit. And the one person that she does reach out to, her cousin Elizabeth. Now, when we look up the metaphysical meaning of Elizabeth, it means God is my oath. So, for guidance and support, Mary is reaching out to absolute adoration and devotion to the divine. So, how would your circumstances, whatever it is you're contemplating, how would it shift if your chosen form of action was to dive deeper into the one presence and one power, knowing that that is expressing, and just let it be. Just let them think, do what they're going to do. Let it be. So Advent, my friends, is a phase of waiting, gestation. So encourage yourself in the weeks to come to follow the example of Mary. Stay grounded in spirit. Open yourself to divine imagination and curiosity. Envision a new way of being coming forth in your life. And like Mary, allow the questions to come forth, but don't pressure yourself for answers. Just allow, let it be. Now, we know that during the holiday season, things get stirred up because we're engaging with a lot of expectations. There are a lot of memories that float up. Many of us experience layers of grief. Whatever it is that's bubbling up, just let them. Just let it be. Let it come forth without judging or reacting. Just notice. Be open to observing the old ways, the way it's always been done, with an intuitive lens. Be willing to ask those questions. What is mine to do? What is mine to keep? What is mine to release? And don't feel pressured to do anything. Just let it be. Divine light is growing in new ways, and prepare yourself to be the channel of a new light expressing in the weeks to come. So that's our example of Mary this week. And now we're going to move into a time of meditation together. So I invite you to take a deep breath, my friends, and let's just really settle into this moment. Wherever you're sitting, just give a little wiggle and settle in just a little bit more. Focus on the breath moving in and out of the body. Expand your awareness of that one power and that one presence as it shows up as light, divine light. Expanding your awareness out. Just open up your intuitive channels to new light waiting to be born within your consciousness. Keep those channels open. Be present with the light. But don't feel any pressure to do anything or pursue anything. Just allow the light to come forth with patience, with devotion, with acceptance. Just let it be as we move into a few moments in the silence together. And as we begin to bring our focus back to the current moment, I'd like for you to continue to hold space for that new light. Just create a sacred space within your consciousness. You can feel that sacred space within your body, wherever it wants to reside. Space for new light to be established. And as we bring our focus back to the current moment, just hold that and allow that to stay there in the weeks to come. A sacred space for encouraging, for growing, for contemplation. And we're going to close our time of meditation with an affirmation. So I'll say it once and then you can repeat it with me at home, okay? Now is the advent of new beginnings, and I am grateful. Say it with me, friends. Now is the advent of new beginnings, and I am grateful. So I am. I am so grateful that you all are here with me this morning or watching later. And we look forward to the season of Advent carrying onward. And right now, I'm going to hand it back to our friend Johnetta.
Unmute. All right. Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. And thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, U of VA, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.